Today we are going to be comparing and ordering non-negative rational numbers. For the vocabulary today, you'll need to know the word least common denominator. Just like we've used least common multiples, we are now going to be applying this to fractions. So a least common denominator is the smallest number, other than 0, that is a multiple of 2 or more denominators. So if we have 1/6 and 1/2, we know that 6 and 2 will both divide evenly into 6. So the common denominator that they share would be 6. 6 is our LCD. Now, if you skip down to the portion of your notes that says to compare two fractions and steps to solve, we will be getting started. So, when you are given two or more fractions, there are 3 steps that you need to follow to be able to compare them. The first step is to find the LCD. Next is to write an equivalent fraction. We know that equivalent fractions are equal. And we're going to write an equivalent fraction for each fraction using the LCD that we found. And then we are going to compare their numerators. Now remember, the numerator is always going to be the top number of a fraction. So let's give one of these examples a try. These examples are telling us to replace each box with a less than, greater than, or equal to sign to make the sentence true. So in the first case, they give us 5/8 and 7/12. So we are going to go ahead and list 5/8 and 7/12. And we know that 8 and 12 will both divide evenly into the number 24. So we can set both of these fractions equal to something over 24. So we know that 8 times 3 is 24. Remember, if we multiply by 3 on the bottom, we've got to do the same to the top. So 5 times 3 is 15. For our next fraction, we know that 12 times 2 is 24. If we multiply by 2 on bottom, we have to do the same to the top. So 7 times 2 is 14. Then, as our steps to solve say, we are going to compare their numerators. So we look at our 15 and we look at our 14. Of those two numbers, we see that the 15 is biggest. So we know that 5/8 is greater than 7/12. Now, I want you to give 1/2 and 3/7 a try, and then we'll check it together. Alright, so we have been given 1/2 and 3/7. So we're going to go ahead and list them. And we know that 2 will not divide into 7, but if we go up to the next multiple, we would have 14. 2 will go into 14. So we know that both of these fractions share an LCD of 14. So we know that 2 times 7 is 14. If we multiply by 7 on bottom, we have to do the same to the top. So 1 times 7 is going to be 7. 7 times 2 is 14, so we do the same to the top. 3 times 2 is 6. Of these two numerators, we see that 7 is bigger, meaning that 1/2 is greater than 3/7. Now, the next question says to put these fractions in order from least to greatest. So if we are putting our fractions in order from least to greatest, it's it's very important that we go ahead and make note of the order they want us to put our fractions in. In this case, it is least to greatest. So we need to go ahead and list our fractions out vertically. We've got 5/8, we've got 1/4, we've got 1/2, and we've got 3/8. So right now we're going to go ahead and look at our denominators. We have 8, 4, 2, and 8. All of those numbers will divide evenly into the number 8. So we know that we're going to set all of our fractions equal to 8. And the first one actually saves us a step. We realize that 5/8 already has 8 as a denominator, so we can just put 5 over here to stay equal. Now, we do know that 4 times 2 is 8, so we have to do the same to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. Next, we know that 2 times 4 is 8, so 1 times 4 is 4. And we realize that this one still has a denominator of 8, so we can just carry over our 3. And then put them in order from least to greatest by looking at their numerators. So we want our least number to be first. We see that out of 5, 2, 4, and 3, that 2 is the smallest. So we know that 1/4 is going to go first. The next biggest would be 3/8. And by looking at those denominators, we know that 4 is smaller than 5, so 1/2 would be next. And we're left with 5/8. So notice how we have listed our fractions in their original form. So we have our fractions in order from least to greatest. Now for some word problems. So for the first word problem we see, it says that Sadie, Abby, Sarah, and Krista each walked from their houses to Walmart. Sadie walked 1/2 mile, Abby walked 5/6 of a mile, Sarah walked 2/3 of a mile, and Krista walked 1/6 of a mile. List the distances in order from greatest to least. So we know that this problem is asking us to list the distances in order from greatest to least. So knowing that our key phrases here are, first off, greatest to least. We want our biggest number first. We notice that Sadie walked 1/2 of a mile. Abby walked 5/6 of a mile. Sarah walked 2/3 of a mile. And Krista walked 1/6 of a mile. The important thing here is going to be to label our distances so we do not get them confused. So we know that Sadie equals 1/2. We know that Abby is 5/6. We know that Sarah is 2/3. And that Krista is 1/6. So looking at all of those denominators, we can see that all of them would divide evenly into 6. So we're going to go ahead and set them equal to 6. So our first fraction is 1/2. We know that 2 times 3 is 6. So we do the same thing to the top. 1 times 3 is 3. 5/6 can say the same since the denominator is already 6. 3 times 2 is 6. So 2 times 2 is 4. And 1/6 already has a denominator of 6. So we're going to keep it the same. Now we can put our numerators in order from greatest to least. So the greatest number here would be Abby's distance of 5/6. So our first name on our list would be Abby. Next would be the 4, which is Sarah. Next would be Sadie at 3. And last would be Krista. And notice how we've listed them in answer form. in the name of each girl, and we turn them back into their original form. So that is how you're going to solve all of those types of problems. So now for the next word problem. Our next word problem says that it takes Jason 3/5 of an hour to finish his math homework, 5/6 of an hour to complete his reading homework, and 2/3 of an hour to complete his science homework. Order the time spent to complete Jason's homework by subject from least to greatest. So they are looking for us to order the time spent on Jason's homework by subject from least to greatest. So we know that we are going to list from least to greatest. You always want to find that order first. So we know it takes 3/5 of an hour to finish math. I don't like how this is written in word form, but I know that 3/5 would be written as a fraction, 3/5 for math. So we're going to use our new fraction over here. We know that it took 5/6 to finish reading. So we are going to go ahead and put 5/6 as a fraction, and that is for reading, and 2/3 to complete science. So 2/3 would be written like this. So we've got 2/3, and that is science. We've got 5/6 for reading, and we have got 3/5 for math. Notice how we are labeling them so we do not get them mixed up because they want us to list by subject. Now, we see the numbers 5, 6, and 3. I know that 5 will not go into 6, so we know that none of these denominators will work, but we do know that all of them would divide evenly into the number 30 if you were to solve for least common multiple. So we know that 5 times 6 is 30. We do the same to the top. 3 times 6 is 18. 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 10 is 30. So 2 times 10 is 20. Now all we have to do is list them from least to greatest by looking at the numerator. And we see that our least number would be 18/30, which corresponds with math. So math is our first subject, followed by our next least, which is science at 20/30. And the subject with the greatest amount of time would be the 25/30, which corresponds with reading. So we know that he did his subjects in order of math, science, then reading. I need you to now go to our class Moodle and journal your summary for this set of notes. Be prepared to discuss it in class tomorrow.